HBO does the best stuff that you will find, Stugotz, and so it's not surprising to hear that Back on the Record with Bob Costas is coming out Friday, July 30th at 11 p.m. Eastern, and I'm sure it will be excellent because HBO and Bob Costas don't do things that aren't excellent. It'll be available to stream on HBO Max, but it's going to start on HBO. Bob Costas joins us now. Thank you, as always, Bob, for making the time. And before I ask you about some of the things going on in the world, what are you eager to say and tackle here that you haven't already eagerly said and tackled? Because you've done everything in this industry. So with this show, what is the inspiration for wanting to do this, and what do you want to accomplish with it?
Dan, I'm not trying to check a box that I previously haven't checked. At this point in my career, I don't want to work as hard or be on as often as I used to be. That wouldn't be appropriate for a number of personal and professional reasons. You know, you have a prime chunk of your career, but if you're still capable of doing some things, then you should do them in kind of a different fashion. So I just want to go back to the things that I most enjoy doing. Later this week, I'm going to do 2 Red Sox-Yankees games, and they're actually letting us back in the ballpark. So Jim Cott and I will do the games from Fenway Park. I just enjoy doing baseball. I know the audience for that is much smaller than when I did the World Series and other things. And certainly everything you do on HBO is to a boutique type of audience, specific audience. But as you said, HBO is known for quality, and that includes HBO Sports. The title of the show tells you that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. The title of the show is Back on the Record. The show I used to have 15 years ago or so on HBO was called On the Record. I hated to leave HBO, but at that time, the hierarchy there understandably said, you got to choose. You can't be on 2 cable networks. And the baseball network had just come into existence, and they wanted me to be part of it, and I have now for more than a decade. So I chose baseball, but it was a really difficult choice because of all the things you said, because of the quality of HBO and the working environment. So now circumstances have changed. They came back to me and said, what would you like to do? I said, I don't want to do it weekly. I don't want to do it monthly. Let's do it quarterly. And that was the idea. Then COVID pushed back what were to have been the first 2 shows this year. So we're going to get 4 of them in, just to get 4 in 2021 in consecutive months, starting in July through October. And then next year it'll become quarterly. So the sorts of things that you would expect, one-on-one interviews that have some substance but also are entertaining. There'll be panel discussions. There'll be some commentary. And unlike situations where I'm on someone else's show, here I'll be able to control the content 100%. So there you go.
Bob, what a great place for you to arrive at, though, where you're picking and choosing what it is you want to do and when you want to do it.
You've been there for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been at that space in my head for a while. In fact, before things got a little bit sideways at NBC, they're better now, I'm happy to say, but before they got a little sideways, the whole idea was that I would have an emeritus role, like Tom Brokaw had for many years in news. I would be that to sports. So I had intended, when I signed my last contract with NBC in 2012, I had intended that the 2016 Olympics would be my last, that eventually I'd stop being on Sunday Night Football, and I'd move into the mode that I'm pretty much in now.
Are you going to have correspondence? What are you going to be doing with others?
Generally speaking, we won't have correspondence. But if there's a situation that calls for something to be reported, then we will turn to people, I don't want to mention names now, but recognizable people with real credentials in sports journalism to do those kinds of pieces that I used to do on the record and that they do on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, if it's called for in an individual instance.
Stugotz was saying here before you came on, he was talking about, he was saying that it's impossible to enforce what happened at the Red Sox-Yankees game here, where the fan who threw a baseball at the left fielder is now banned from all baseball games everywhere in the United States. He cannot go to Major League Baseball games, professional baseball games. What do you think should happen there? What do you make of what happened this weekend in baseball, both with the postponement of Padres Nationals because there were gunshots nearby, and in general with the hostility that fans seem to have toward players in basketball and elsewhere where they're throwing things at the entertainers?
Well, on the second one about the Padres Nationals, as we know, it's unrelated to the game itself, unrelated to baseball. It just happened outside the ballpark, and that's part of the spate of gun violence that is all over the country, and guns are one part of it, yes, but you could have however hundreds of millions of guns we have in this country, and this is not a pro-NRA statement. Some of it has to do with the attitudes of those with the guns, the disregard for life, the sheer depravity that we see being played out in too many instances. Now, when it comes to fans, there's always been unruly fan behavior, but for whatever reason, post-pandemic, I don't know that it's fully behind us, but people are back in the arenas and ballparks. Some of it obviously has to do, and I'm not a psychologist or sociologist, but some of it has to do with some sort of pent-up emotion or resentment that built up during the worst days of COVID. But I would also think that it has to do with social media and the way we talk about sports now. You know, somebody mentioned the other day, and I knew it, but I hadn't thought about it. Jerry West, Mr. Clutch, played in 8 or 9 NBA finals with the Lakers, and his team won only one of them. And his West Virginia team lost the NCAA championship by a single point. Would Jerry West be Mr. Clutch today, or would people be haranguing on him the way they're haranguing on Chris Paul now? That sort of toxic tone, not like we hope our team wins, but we demand our team wins. And we'll hold extremely accomplished people to impossible standards of perfection, and then a Twitter mob of some kind will descend upon them, usually ignorantly, for the slightest misstep or perceived misstep. All of those things, create a witch's brew where people think they're able to act out in any way they want. I don't know how effective what you mentioned is going to be, that this guy who threw the baseball into Verdugo's back is banned for life. They're going to have facial recognition at every ballpark in the major leagues. What if the guy puts on a disguise? Or is there a list, like a no-fly zone? You got to show an ID. Now, is everybody going to have to show an ID plus their ticket to get into the ballpark? You have to show up 3 hours before the game.
I feel like Bob was blaming me there for everything.
I mean, you're the public voice that's very vicious to Chris Paul.
Well, I just want him to win. I mean, win a title. If you want to call him one of the great point guards of all time, Bob, you got to win an NBA championship. Right now, in the Hall of Fame, he's in that Allen Iverson room, Bob, and where I want him to move to, okay, is the Isaiah Thomas Magic Johnson room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, look, that's a legitimate point.
With the greats, too. Thanks.
That's a legitimate point. Those things can all be discussed. If we're talking about Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams way back, Williams has his advantages over DiMaggio. One of the advantages DiMaggio has over Williams is all the world championships, and Ted's Red Sox only won one pennant. But we used to not blame that on single people. What you just mentioned, Stugotz, is a legitimate sports conversation. What I'm talking about more is the tone of a lot of it. That's all.
Are fans meaner, or do they just have more access?
I think it's both. I think that when we talk about social media and the worst of it, it's a meeting ground, but it also then quickly becomes a breeding ground where these kind of attitudes are amplified and even validated. Again, there's not any one factor, and I'm not a sociologist, but all these things are factors that go into creating some kind of witch's brew of circumstances that leads, at its worst individual instances, leads to the worst stuff that we've seen.
Do you find yourself, Bob, because I know this is happening to me, I've got a great life. I'm otherwise pretty happy, but the last couple of years have felt like a sickness. I am scared. I see, and I don't know whether it's just getting old. Like every generation has its issues. I'm sure it wasn't very pleasant to be living during World War II, but I just find myself carrying around a low level of anxiety, or what I imagine depression feels like if you're locked in it all the time, just because I'm scared of everything that's happening in the world.
Well, we're more aware of it. That's obvious. When everything, or seemingly everything, it really is only a small fraction of what goes on, but a larger fraction than we used to see is available on video or is reported about because somebody sees it and puts it on social media, then mainstream media picks up on it if they find it interesting. I think we are confronted by more of what is anxiety-provoking and concerning and even horrifying in the world. We're confronted by more of it than we used to be.
You're a 19-time Emmy winner. Is any one of them more important to you than the other?
The first one. The first one I got was sometime in the mid-'80s, and at that time, the Sports Emmy Awards were televised, and they would have, Robert Klein would be the host or a presenter, and one year Dennis Hopper, I remember, was a presenter. It was kind of a cool thing, and Alan Thicke was the host, and everybody dressed up. This was like a black tie thing, not just suits. It was like the Academy Awards or the Emmys, cocktail dresses, black tie, the whole deal. And I was nominated in the same category as Al Michaels and Dick Enberg, some of the real reigning giants of the industry at that time. And somehow I won. And that was tremendous validation. It was just, wow, how did this happen? To even be nominated with these people would have been great. So the first one is the one I remember best, I guess.
As awkward and clumsy and unprofessional as my transition was from apocalyptic fear to asking him about Emmys, what did Stugotz just text you, Mike, that while Bob Costas was talking, very eloquently about the things that are producing anxiety in America and beyond, what did he text you?
Yeah, during your enlightened conversation, I got a text from Stugotz that said Todd Gurley Ravens, to which we all had to search for what he meant, because there's no report saying that Todd Gurley signed with the Ravens. He was just texting me about a visit Todd Gurley is presently having with the Baltimore Ravens.
According to Adam Schefter, I think it's a 1-year deal now, Mike, so he gets a chance to prove himself again. Right, it's a big deal, Mike. Todd Gurley to the Ravens.
I love a 1-year
a 1-year prove it deal.
Yeah.
What did you want to ask Costas?
Bob, I'm wondering, because you won so many of those awards, when did you arrive at getting bored with winning Emmys?
I guess I should say the boilerplate things. It's always a thrill. It's always an honor to be nominated. The last couple of times they did it virtually, and I'm doing less, and I don't think I was nominated any of those times. Would have been easier to skip out when they do it virtually as opposed to having to show up. But one of the best things about the Emmys is that you're in the presence of all the other people who you know and generally respect in the industry. So that kind of get together is an important thing. But as I said, I'm not jaded about it, Stugotz, but it's different when you're 34, 35 years old and it's your first one, as opposed to when it's happened a few times before.
Update. Even though Stugotz just cited an Adam Schefter tweet, there is no such tweet. We are still scrambling to confirm what Stugotz meant by Todd Gurley Ravens.
$5 for reading
it's out there, Mike.
$5 for reading the internet wrong. I love this juxtaposition of the best broadcaster in the world with the worst broadcaster in the world.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
By the way, update. And I say this only to make another point because it doesn't matter to me. It's 29 Emmys, Stugotz, not 19.
I'm sorry.
You're off by double digits, but here's the point I'm making. People, quote, research through Wikipedia or whatever. I saw it somewhere. I saw a release somewhere. I saw something on Twitter. Now, this is inconsequential. My Emmy total is inconsequential. But you realize how many people actually, with certitude, are armed with information that is 100% not credible. And you know what one of the biggest aspects of this is, whenever someone says something that gets someone else's nose out of joint, then comes the headline. Dan Le Batard goes on rant or tirade. And it's completely out of context, doesn't take into account all the qualifiers that he or I may have said, and then a small portion of it becomes part of the story that follows the clickbait headline, and then 1,000 people comment on it with the absolute assurance that they know exactly what Dan Le Batard said, and they know exactly what they can extrapolate from that to make whatever other point they want to make, and you realize then you're in a house of mirrors.
I mean, it says 19 on the sheet of paper in front of me. Chris, you want to button that shit up, man. It's a bad look, man.
It was a fake Sports Center tweet that Stugotz got fooled by.
That's unfortunate. They should sign Todd Gurley, though. A motivated Gurley, 1-year deal, man. A prove it deal, Dana.
Bob, what do you sound, and you are someone who is very professional. You sound like you find it a little bit wearying, everything that's happening with journalism, sports journalism, facts, all of it?
Yeah, a little bit. But I think, especially if you've been lucky enough, as I have, to have had a career that you only could have dreamed of, and now you're just trying to do, on a limited basis, the things that are truest to you, the best you can hope for is you kind of annex your own little patch of ground. And on this patch of ground, I'm going to do what I do the way I want to do it. And to fair-minded people who actually watch it in full, it'll speak for itself. But I can't turn this whole thing around. You know, it's like trying to turn an ocean liner around in a bathtub. You just can't do it.
How about the general state of not sports journalism, but journalism, Bob? As you have seen some of these giants, you've seen the entire industry change. Well, it was years and years ago, Jon Stewart replaced the network anchorman as America's most trusted news source. And that was years and years ago. Everything has changed, another full revolution since then. The state of journalism, as newspapers die and checks and balances die and billionaires ride their phallic symbols into space, and Stugotz reads fake Sports Center tweets, and I get fooled by the internet on whether Disney was putting up graphics that were putting up Rotten Tomato scores on Warner Brothers for the Space Jam movie. The state of journalism, as Bob Costas views it, the decay of it. You make what of it?
Well, I think that a lot of good journalism still goes on in broadcast and print precincts. A lot of it still goes on. But there's so much stuff out there, and now the new technology, and it's not all that new anymore, allows people, if they choose, to select their own bubbles and their own echo chambers. So it isn't even necessarily that what they're getting there is always untrue, but it's a selective truth. Fox News, for example, learned or relearned what they already knew, which is that their audience doesn't want to hear anything, even if it's as obviously true as 2 + 2 is 4, anything that would indicate that Donald Trump is perhaps not worthy of their undying devotion. And so when on election night they simply acknowledged the truth that Biden had won, a portion of their audience migrated to even Trumpier places, Newsmax and OAN. So now Fox realizes, look, we're McDonald's. We're not going to serve you pizza or sushi. This is what you came for. So on Fox News, not everything that's said is untrue. Some of it is straight news reporting, and some of it makes legitimate points from a legitimate conservative perspective. But what they will never acknowledge is the giant elephant in the room, the truth about the unreality and the delusional world of Donald Trump that so many people have bought into. Because if they acknowledge that in a straightforward way, which you don't have to be a Democrat or liberal to see, the numbers of longtime conservative media people, longtime conservative and Republican politicians, the people who have worked closely with Trump both before and during his presidency, all the books that have come out about him, most of those are not coming from left-wing directions. They're coming from clear-eyed people who are centrists or right of center all their lives, but they see this craziness. If Fox were to acknowledge that, or the other various places in right-wing talk radio, whatever, if all those places were just to acknowledge it, which is at this point like acknowledging that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, it would cost them audience, period. So is everything said on those outlets untrue? No. But they are ignoring a substantial truth because it doesn't fit their business model. And that's true on the other side as well. It's just not true to the same extent. And most importantly, it's not true about a former president of the United States who still holds sway over a huge portion of the electorate, which makes it, even if you can find something that sort of is the same way on the other side, it makes it much more consequential because of the impact it's had on the country and could continue to have on the country.
Back on the record with Bob Costas. He does it better than just about anybody who's ever done it. Debuts Friday, July 30th, 11 p.m. Eastern. You will get it on HBO Max streaming. You will get it on HBO. Looking forward to it, Bob. Always appreciate the time, sir. Good luck with that show. I know it's going to be great.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stugotz. Are things going well on the pirate ship?
It is okay. Stugotz continues to provide content for us by doing things like he just did in the middle of the. May he never
You're
stop.
welcome.
May he never stop doing that. Can't wait to make fun of him in the next segment. Yes, though we are enjoying the same freedom you're talking about. We're enjoying carving out a little space for ourselves that where we could do what we want.
Yeah, and good for you. Just keep this in mind. You need plenty of orange juice because all those pirates got scurvy aboard the pirate ship. They're sailing and sailing for months and months. Their provisions run low, and they get scurvy because they got no vitamin C.
I married scurvy. It's my co-host. Thank you, Bob, for being on with us. Appreciate it.
Hey.
See ya.